Hello and welcome back to Exotic Car Hacks. Today we are getting to talk about the Ferrari F430, an icon at Ferrari and indeed what I would consider to be one of the easiest cars to drive for free over the next 5 to 10 years. So if you've ever wanted a Ferrari, make sure you listen in because this video is going to reveal some crazy numbers about why the F430 can be driven completely free for the next decade. All right, guys, welcome back to Exotic Car Hacks. And like I said, we are going to be looking at the F430 today. But before we do that, we are here in beautiful Boca Raton in Exotic Hunter's showroom. And it's quite a showroom. Take a look around at how amazing some of the cars here are. That's a tailor-made F8, a tailor-made Pista, and a tailor-made SF90 all in one place. He has some pretty exciting cars, and you should definitely check out their showroom whenever you get a chance. They're located right here in Boca Raton and have some amazing inventory. Today, they were nice enough to lend us an F430. I'm too rich to drive this crap.
Is this some sort of peasant joke that I'm too rich to understand?
Why do we always lose in the middle of my videos? I'm telling you guys, this is some serious, fucking, B-roll. This should be like a bloopers thing, except the other way around. I should film what you... Anyways, so back to this F430. This is a silver F430 with a tan Cuyo interiors, so they call it. This is what I would consider a better version of the F430, and one of the reasons we're looking at it today is because rarely do they get an older car like this that actually doesn't look like total shit. And usually with these F430s, they show their age very, very fast, so it's very hard to find clean, driven, good examples. Here you'll find, again, a silver on Cuyo car with shields, and very basic options, but in incredibly good condition for its year and miles. The interior shows off the carbon console, which is something that I'll always argue later about the options you need to have with the car. And the seats don't show any extensive wear. The sticky buttons, which can usually be handled and are absolutely a disaster in every single one of these cars, can be found here for a very fair, all done up, and can be done for roughly $1,000 by any third-party shop, or even your Ferrari dealer can fix these. Now, nonetheless, this car, again, does not sport any significant carbon options. This is usually available on the aftermarket side in carbon and some engine bay components. You can also, get upgrades like the carbon diffuser, etc. In this case, we have a very clean, simple F430. And if it was my car and I was going to drive this, I would just put a set of wheels, lower it, and PPF and stealth the car, and you would get a very, very exciting car. These are great daily drivers. The transmissions are a little bit clunky, but the more you drive them, the less they break. They're pretty easy to fix, but parts are, again, pretty hard to find. In this case, some of the main features you want to pay attention to when buying a 430, outside of options, which we'll talk about a little bit, is you always want to check, obviously, your tires and your brakes because they can get costly on Ferrari, but also these particular headlights. They're very hard to find on the secondary market and often have significant fogging inside or damage to the lens themselves. If you find a clean car like this that has very minimal, you're in very good shape. Secondly, you'll notice the dash pulling a lot on some of these, so you'll see a lot of this stuff coming off, and you can very slightly see it here in this one. This is very, very minor and very okay. This does not require an immediate action, but this is very common on these cars that this entire dash will start lifting in different parts, and you'll have to spend $4,000 to $5,000 to basically correct it. In this case, all of this seems to have been done at some point. This car is too old for it not to have been done, and so I would assume that at some point this was taken care of and done on this car. So on the surface, those are the two key things that you can notice every F430 have. Now, on the back of the car, if we lifted the car, you would see that the rear main seal, along with the F1 transmission, often are known to leak, as well as the struts on this car. Now, this is not bad. This is simply an age issue. Now, one thing that I would argue with these cars is they sound fantastic with an exhaust upgrade. So if you were to drive it, I would also recommend doing that. This is a very simplistic, good car. It's not in bad shape, so it's very hard to show you exactly all the components that are messed up on an F430 because it's actually pretty clean. This car has a full PPF, which is something obviously you want to do no matter what. But the real thing about the F430 is not so much the cars, but the real differences in the repair costs are not, because parts are pretty scarce. So let's go back to my office. Let's go into the board and see the numbers behind the F430 and why I'm saying that you can drive this for free for an entire decade. All right, guys, so now let's take a look at the math behind the Ferrari 430. Now, This is a little bit of a tricky one because typically when we look at these, especially when we did the 911 Turbo, the R8 or anything else, and again, remember if you haven't yet, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you can actually see as we keep doing the math on some of these cars and how affordable they actually are. The Ferrari 430 is a little bit different because when we did the Gallardo, the Turbo, or the R8, we're talking about cars that are historically more reliable and easy to deal with than the 430s. So if we look online right now, we could find a car for like 110,000 that's non-salvaged, non-broken, and the range could go all the way up to 170,000 for the same car. Now, this is using the non-gated F1 transmission cars. We're not talking about manually gated cars because those are in the 400K range now. 110 to 170. This is a very large gap. It's almost like a 50% gap just for the sake of the same car. So there has to be a reason why a car is significantly more, especially if the mileage is the same. Well, it's because repair costs on these cars can be astronomical. We took a look at one and kind of saw a better example of one, and I kind of pointed out some of the things that are typically wrong with them. But you also have to understand that 50% of the cost for a clean car versus a non is a lot. So could you find a car for 110 that needs some work but is still in pretty good shape, or do you have to pay the full 170? And the answer from experience, as of today, the average median price of a clean F430 in good shape with under 20,000 miles is roughly 130 grand, assuming it needs nothing more than just roughly about 5K in extras or maintenance or anything else. So you have an average of 125 to 135, 130 being the median price. So where does that money come from, and why can't you just buy 110? Even if you buy it at 110, by the time you put it to inspection, you're going to end up having more money due based on what's wrong with the actual car. And these cars aren't bad cars, they're just getting older, and Ferraris don't age well just like Maseratis. So about 3 to 4 years ago, the average price for this car was anywhere from 110 to 115, which tells us that in the last 3 years, these cars have risen, but roughly only as much as 10 to 15% primarily. And it's not really a lot, but it's factoring in 10 to 15% over 3 years. That means that these cars are roughly growing about 5% a year. What that means is that each year you own this car, the appreciation of the car will roughly be 5%. Now, this is very low appreciation in an era where cars like these are becoming harder and harder to get, but this is what I'm kind of getting into. In the next 5 years, something interesting is going to happen. A lot of these 130K cars are actually going to disappear off the market. And the reason they're disappearing off the market is because they're getting older and less people are basically transacting in them. So for that reason, today when you're looking on the market, you might find 10, 15 cars for sale. Tomorrow when you look the same, but in 5 years, you at best will find 3 to 5 cars even worth talking about. And remember, new volume of cars is significantly greater than old volume back then. If you're going to be buying a car in terms of a car to actually drive and enjoy and collect, you're going to want to buy between an 07 and 08. You're going to want to focus on the coupe, not so much the actual spiders, because the tops are soft and they get very old and broken. So an 07, 08 coupe in really good check, and you're going to want a car that has ceramic brakes, and you're going to want a car that has challenge wheels. And if you can get those two things, and on top of that as a bonus, get a carbon interior, even if you do that later by just upgrading some of the interior components, if you can do that and find that list and still be under 130K, you can basically drive this car for free for the next 15 years. Plain and simple. The maintenance cost itself will just be eaten by the 5%, and that's a minimum increase. Once the cars hit a volume that falls below 3 cars on the market in a 90-day period, then you're going to see that number rise to 10% year over year. And it could even go higher, 15, 20%, 10% being very conservative. So in order to retain that, I think one thing we need to pay attention to here is quality is key, but I also want you to not forget something. A lot of times, regardless that quality is key or not, parts are very hard to find on older cars. The 430 is getting there, so it's very likely that now cars like parts like headlights, parts like shifters, or even parts like ECU control units are not going to be widely available everywhere all the time. So it is going to make it harder and harder to keep it on the road, which is part of the reason these cars will start to disappear. Now, we're going to see the same with the Ford GTs. Remember, Ford GTs, for example, no longer have aesthetic parts available. So if you have a windshield that breaks, car's basically total loss. If you have a headlight that breaks, car's a total loss. You know, like there's no way to supplement these things when they don't exist. So a lot of times, people don't realize this, but that's really the reality of the situation, that once you own some of these older cars, ownership could be as short as 3 months or it could be as long as 15 years without issues. But at some point, you're faced with the reality, and that's one of the key reasons I always recommend having a stated value policy, like an agreed upon value policy for your insurance in case something happens, they can just total the car and you're not stuck with a car waiting for a headlight for 12 years. So just keep that in mind. That's where the dollar ends up on these cars. Just be incredibly careful of 05s, 06s, and cars that are under that 130, 135K range, because if you have a perfect car that's been to inspection at 110, it's very likely that you got a bad inspection. You need to rethink that inspection. There's a dozen dealers I know that would pay 110 and put that car back on the market. So my opinion for you, if you're looking to get into an F430, make sure the car has all of its components in check, because you might struggle with parts. Focus on 07, 08 coupe, ceramic brakes, and challenge wheels, and fully carbon interior. If you don't have the carbon interior, that's the only thing you can basically walk away from. Challenge wheels, you can add it after as well, depending on the price you pay. But ceramic brakes and the coupe part are non-negotiables for the F1 cars. Gated cars are going to be double the money, so usually 2 times what the non-gated cars go for. So I wouldn't recommend buying them at this point. They're already long gone for what they are. But on the other side of things, I think that if you buy a coupe and you have the right records, etc., this could be like a lot of car for the money and continuously pay for itself for the next 10, 15 years. I don't know that anyone would want to drive a car like this for the next 10, 15 years, even though right now you might be watching this being like, I would dream of this car. It's not really how this game works, but nonetheless, this is still the way you look at it if this is your entry-level first exotic. Anyhow, hope you found this useful. Don't forget, if you don't know what car hacking is, click the link below and actually take the free training. And if you actually want to get in a car like this, take the second link, which is going to teach you how to pay me money to actually teach you how to do this. So if you see cars at 170, you need to negotiate down to 135, you might actually have an actual opportunity to do that by learning the way this industry works and what are some of the things you could say. So click the link below, and I will see you next time for Exotic Car Hacks.